Say hello.
Hello.
All right. Hello, friends.
Ooh.
We
Oh,
made some upgrades. So before I get into everything, leave me a comment, please, and let me know if you can hear and see us. Tonight, I have my lovely co-host Sarah with me. Say hi, Sarah, so they can do a mic check
hello.
for you. So, mic check. How do we sound this week compared to last week, everybody? So we found out what the problem was. Our house is kind of, I don't know, the way it's organized, big and spread out, and the Wi-Fi in this room is not very good. So I just hardwired it, and it seems like the connection is much better. So
We are
that's
good to go this week.
yeah, that's awesome. So I didn't know that because I do a lot of podcasts and everything in this room, but like podcasts are different because you're not streaming, so everything was fine. But then when I started streaming, it just couldn't support everything, and so I apologize about that. Anywho, we're hardwired like back in the 90s, and we are ready to go. Um,
I think
so,
I'm
well, Sarah froze. So, anyways,
okay.
we're. I didn't say it was going to be perfect. I said it would be better. Anyways, we'll check back in on her in a minute. So, how's everyone doing out there today? We might next week go to 8 o'clock for this, just FYI, because some of our East Coast peeps um, say that is after their bedtime. So we might try 8 o'clock Central and see how that works. But anyways, um, here, Sarah, let me throw you back on there and tell me if it's working on your screen or if you're still frozen. And then we'll dive right in. So I know there's a little delay what I see and from what YouTube land sees. Nope, still frozen. Okay. Yeah. How about that? All right. Well, Sarah's here in
Don't get to
spirit
see me
and in
tonight.
real life. For some reason, her camera froze. Anywho, okay. So this week was wild. Actually, I think Sarah's probably happy with this because she's tired tonight. She was doing some manual labor today.
I am not a manual labor kind gal, but got in there and did it today. The limited amount. I will give all the props to Kathy and Elle and Nick and you and Kurt.
Yeah, I guess I'll just tell everybody we have a space coming. It's actually called The Space. So we have a physical space that we are in the process of building out and bringing to life, and it's coming along very awesomely and very quickly. And it's actually going to be it's in Grayton Beach, which is right down the street from me. Voted one of the best beaches in the world. Multiple years in a row. It's an amazing, amazing place, and the energy there's and vibe there is so cool. So we're actually going to be partnering up with Grayton Beach Surf Club and putting this, like, we call it the space because it's just this like amazing like multi-use space that's going to be in the back, and I'll share a bunch of pictures and stuff for everybody. But anyways, we've been out there building it out and working, and Nick, I don't know if he's listening right now. He's been working behind the scenes like a madman for a couple months now, and so it's me and Taylor, who owns Grayton Beach Surf Club, and then Kurt, who's our black belt ninja friend, and then the Maxwells, who are our best buddies and travel buddies. So Nick and Kathy, and then me and Sarah, and we all come together, kind of form like Voltron, and everyone has their different roles, and it's going to be a lot of fun because we're going to do like so many cool different things there, and it's like a community thing. So all you guys, even though you might, some of you live here, some of you don't, but this is something where we're going to do like big workshops, retreats, big events, have big names come in and partner with us and do all sorts of fun stuff. So be looking for a lot of exciting announcements on that coming up because, we live in a cool place. So, I shouldn't have to twist your arm too much to come here and hang because this place is really cool. It's like walking distance to the forest trails, walking distance to the beach. We're going to do so many cool things there. So it should be a lot of fun. So I look forward to seeing all of you guys in person one day, hopefully. So without further ado, let's get into this week's episode. So we started the week with 3i Atlas, the comet thing that everyone's talking about. And then we went to basically, human design / the 2027 prophecy. And it's funny, like as I dive into these topics, there seems to be this like thread between all of them, which is like, I don't know, Earth changes, human changes, things coming up, and basically from now to like to 2040 seems to be like this really wild time that seems to be kind of shaping up. So as I dive into all these things, I'm not looking for like prophetic type things. I'm not looking for apocalyptic type things. I'm just studying like interesting things. But it's so wild that like so many of the things that I'm drawn to and so many of the things that draw me to them seem to have this like, I don't know, this almost like apocalyptic like kind of undertone to them, like meaning like something's coming, not necessarily like apocalyptic in a bad sense, because apocalypse literally just means dropping of the veil and revealing of the truth. So that's good, but oftentimes that comes with people kind of freaking out and holding on to the truth and struggles and that kind of stuff. But overall, I think like we're going into like a very exciting and positive time. But like last week I did the whole 2050 thing, and that blew a lot of people away because the data was just so, there's so much. I mean, I could do 2 or 3 more episodes on just that. But that really resonated with people because they're like, okay, this is, I kind of feel this, and we're all psychic antennas and people pick up on this stuff. And then, when I went into 3i Atlas talking about how I think that's going to affect us in the future, people were like, yeah, I feel that too. Like that's resonating with me. And then even when I went into the 2027 prophecy from human design. So these are 3 totally different things. Looking at this near future from 3 totally different angles, people are like, yeah, that totally resonates too. And it's like, because it's all kind of coming together, and it's almost like all these different people and systems and stuff are sort of seeing or feeling or picking up on the same thing, just, I don't know, looking at it and talking about it from different angles. So I think that's interesting that, like, if something is true, you're going to be able to see it from multiple different angles. It's not just going to be one person's, thoughts or anything. So I'll get into like kind of what I talked about. I'll do a quick recap on, so on Tuesday's episode, it was about 3i Atlas, which is the comet, which loosely I'll call it a comet because we don't really know what it is because it's not from this, star system. It's interstellar. So it means it's from a different star system. So that's super cool because, we've only been able to study 3 of these ever. So that's why they call it 3i Atlas. It's not 31. A lot of people call it 31 Atlas, but it's 3i means a third interstellar object. And it's just the third one that we've been able to study because we haven't had the instruments to study these before 2017, really. And anyways, so it's buzzing through our solar system, and it's not bound by any sort of, gravitational, orbit. So it's just kind of flying straight through our solar system from somewhere else. I think from the center of our galaxy, which there's a supermassive black hole at the center of the Milky Way. So it's coming from that region, and it's coming to us. And an interesting thing just happened yesterday or the day before. The sun had a CME, which is a coronal mass ejection. And, it's kind of like shooting a shotgun blast out. And, the sun's always rotating. And so depending on where it shoots is what it's going to hit. So that's why if we have like what's called an Earth-facing CME, people on Earth get a little nervous because we're like, uh-oh, like the blast is coming our way. Well, in this case, the CME blast went right towards where 3i Atlas is going. It's kind of like it's going and 3i Atlas is coming on its trajectory. And yeah, so they think it's going to hit what's 27th, I think today or tomorrow, they're going to kind of collide. And this is not like a physical thing hitting, it's a CME. So it's actually a like an energetic blast of plasma that's going to hit it. Well, that's super interesting because in my video on Tuesday, I talked about how I don't see 3i Atlas as like I don't know, like an alien mothership that's coming to invade us or anything like that. It's on a very, very predictable trajectory. It's by all, measures, it's a comet. It's just a alien comet from some other part of the universe. And what happens is comets, when they get closer to the sun, comets are usually full of ice. And as they get closer to the sun, they start to heat up, and it ionizes a lot of the material on it, and it ionizes into this like plasma sort of force field. And then it also starts to heat up and eject its like organic material. Well, now we have like a CME, which is a coronal mass ejection, which is like a plasma shock wave that is going to hit, or they're going to kind of go through. It's going to go through that CME. So we don't know what's going to happen there. Like that's a new thing. We don't know what this thing is. We don't know where it came from. So we don't know what's going to happen at all. And now a CME hit it. So that's going to activate some stuff. And as it gets closer on October 29th to the perihelion, which is the closest point that it's going to get to the sun, then it's going to really activate and really start shedding its material. And I think that's the most interesting thing, because I see it as like a seed more so. It's going to be dropping off all of its stuff here. And, the sun puts out what's called solar wind, and that carries stuff to us just like the wind does. And also, if you listen to me talk, I talk a lot about neutrinos and a neutrino stream, which is like a carrier wave, that comes from the sun, to us. I mean, it radiates out everywhere at almost the speed of light. And it carries all this stuff too, because all this stuff has information. So there's a lot of things going on. So I don't look at it like, oh no, like 3I Atlas, this giant comet's coming towards us, we're all going to die, because it's coming nowhere near Earth. It's going to be 1.8 astronomical units from Earth, which is astronomical unit is from the distance from us to the sun. So it's going to be 1.8 of that. It's almost twice as far as that distance. So it's going to be very far from Earth. But neutrinos carry information at almost the speed of light. So, I think, because if you study astrology, you know that, like, depending on what celestial bodies are in our little cosmic clock in our solar system at any given time, like that's like a snapshot. And the astrologers can, like, kind of like pull all this information out of that and say, okay, based on where all these things are, these celestial bodies are, we can tell you, what's going to happen and all that kind of stuff, because each celestial body has an archetype and energy. So we know how all that stuff works, but now we have this like alien object that's in there all of a sudden. It's like, okay, what does that mean? Like, what is this alien object? Like, we don't know what energy it carries. We don't know what archetype it has. We don't know what information it's bringing into our system. So what I did in the Tuesday videos, I went back to, because we can only use 2 other instances to really, draw on, because we've only had 3 total of these interstellar objects that we've studied.
How big is the 3I Atlas?
It's hard to tell. They think that its core, the actual material part of it, is about 3 to 5 miles. So big, but not like gigantic. But it has kind of how humans have a physical body and an energetic body and a plasma body and stuff. It's the same thing. Like, it has multiple layers to it. And they can't really see it. All they can see is the light that's emitting from it. So, and they can kind of gauge how heavy it is and how big it is by the fact that right now it's outgassing, and outgassing should push it off of its trajectory just a little bit. And since it's not, that means it's incredibly massive. It's incredibly solid, because if it was lighter, like it should be lighter, like most comets would be, the outgassing would actually nudge it from its path, and it's not, which means that it's freaking solid and it's big. So we know that it's solid, we know that it's big, but we just don't know exactly how big. So a few miles is what they think, probably 5 miles. But it's incredibly dense and incredibly massive. So that means it has a lot of stuff in it,
Yeah.
And we don't know what that stuff is. They can tell by like the colors that it emits as it outgasses, like what kind of, chemicals it has in it. But those are still kind of guesses, because this thing came from somewhere else. It came from, they think it's billions of years old, and they think it came from the center of our galaxy. Those are all just guesses. But I talked on Tuesday that I look at it like the universe being a body, and we're in the gut essentially, and this is a pill that the universe is sending in, like medicine, delivering information. I see these things as carriers of information. That's how I look at it, because when we look at what happened in 2017 with Oumuamua, which was our first, interstellar object, if you look at what happens right after these things happen, so right after that happened, like immediately after, the New York Times article dropped with the whole UFO disclosure, and it kind of changed the world as far as making the average person realize that there probably is life out there and there's aliens, because the New York Times article basically is what started the modern day disclosure process. And without that article, we wouldn't be talking about aliens. The Congress wouldn't be talking about aliens. We wouldn't have all of these disclosure meetings happening and all that kind of stuff. Kathy, do we have a guesstimation on time when that solar wind could hit Earth with the organic material seeds? So we won't know that until So around October 29th is when it's going to get to perihelion. So that's when it will be really, really, I mean, before that, it's still going to be activated and it still is ionizing right now, but it's going to be the closest to the sun. So that's when it's really going to be lighting up and ionizing. And I think that when it's doing that, it's on the other side of the sun from us, so we won't even see it. So the solar wind will be um, carrying that, I would assume, away from us. But then, it kind of slingshots around. And so it all depends on, how the solar wind is flowing. And, not a sun weatherman, so I couldn't tell you that. But I know that there is a chance that the current, there is actually like the solar wind current that carries stuff to us. But it would be microscopic because you got to think like this thing's only a few miles wide and Earth is huge. So the amount of organic material that would come to us, like physically, would be very small. But when you look at this from like a information point of view, you look at neutrinos and how they carry information. You look at how astrology works. So like neutrinos, when they leave the sun and they head to us, they're affected by where Venus is and where Mars is and where Saturn is and where Neptune is, even though the neutrinos don't directly pass through those planets on the way to us, obviously. It's more of where everything is located at that
Right.
time. It's like gears in a watch. So the information this thing puts out there can directly affect us, even if like the physical organic matter doesn't come to us, because it can just pass the information through. That's what the neutrinos do. They just carry information. They go right through something. They are filtered by it. They pick up that information. They bring it to us. That hits our DNA and it unlocks these gates. And so that's kind of what we dig into with human design, is how the neutrino stream affects our DNA through the filtering of the different celestial bodies. So to answer your question, Kathy, a great question. I don't know exactly when or if the actual organic matter will hit us, but that might not even matter as much. But that might just be a totally different layer to this, because if that hits us too, then who knows? I mean, these could be little seeds. There's a theory that life originated on Earth from fungus, like fungal organic matter, because they've found that fungus can survive on comets and asteroids, because most things can't really survive in deep space. It's not like a good habitat for life. But on these comets, the reason they have organic matter is because it's frozen. It's like this frozen rock. So if there was like organic matter on that before it froze, it's like when you throw a steak in your freezer. I mean, it's still good years later. It's frozen, so that organic matter is kind of frozen. And so it's traveling through deep space. Everything's cold as hell out there. Nothing really happens. It's just like a time capsule. And then when it gets to us, because our sun is so massive, it creates this like, it's called a gravitational well. It's like a drain. It pulls that comet towards it, and the comet's going to go around the sun and slingshot out. And then we probably won't see it again. But while it's coming around the sun, it's going to get real close. And then the radiation from the sun heats it up and cooks it like a microwave. And that ice starts to melt, and then the organic matter ionizes, and then it starts to shed. Big pieces could actually come off. I mean, this thing is a few miles wide. I mean, you could actually have big chunks of this thing come off. So we don't know what's going to happen. And then it goes through a CME, so we don't really know what's going to happen. So it's really, really interesting. And so we've had 2 interstellar objects before. So we talked about Oumuamua, which was in 2017. Right after that, the New York Times article dropped and disclosure started. 2019 is when Borisov came through, and 1 month after it hit its perihelion, COVID started. And even though COVID was a giant shit show, it did lead to a great awakening. I mean, I know so many people, including us, that had their great awakenings during the whole COVID era and lockdown, especially. So it was a powerful time, and it was a transformative time on Earth. And so we had these 2 transformative times on Earth directly after the last 2 interstellar comets came through. So now this one's coming through, and it's coming through on the 29th, right? Well, what happens on the 29th of October? Well, I mean, actually, it's the 30th of October when it comes through. So the 30th of October is when we start basically the whole, thinning of the veil around Dia de los Muertos and Halloween. And that's all based on the reason Halloween is that date is because of, the older, like kind of darker, what am I trying to say? I forget the people who started Halloween. It wasn't called Halloween. Hallows. What is it called?
Hallows Eve.
Hallows. Not. I forget. Drop in the chat if y'all know what I'm talking about. Where Halloween originated from. But anyways, it was kind of an occult type thing, having to do with the thinning of the veil. So basically, around that time, like Dia de los Muertos goes, I think, from the 31st until the 2nd of November. In that time period between the 30th and around the 2nd of November is when historically the veil that sort of separates our physical reality from non-physical realities is the thinnest, right? So it's when you can, a lot of weird stuff happens. That's why Halloween is a weird holiday, and that's why it's on that date, is because those things were already happening and they're kind of piggybacking off of that. Yeah, All Hallows Eve. Thank you. So anyway, so this guy's coming through doing his perihelion right when the veil is going to be the thinnest. And so when I look back and I say, okay, 2017, that was like beginning of disclosure, letting the average person know that, we're not alone in the universe. And then go to the next one, which is basically, sorry, my cat wants to be on TV. The next one is basically, like, you can't really trust the government, can't trust, doctors, that kind of stuff. It's almost like letting the average person know that, like, okay, we're good. That, like, take your life in your own hands, like, take care of your neighbor, take care of your community, those kinds of good, things. That's what we learned through COVID, or what you should have learned through COVID, is that, maybe the people that we thought had our best interest at heart maybe don't. And maybe the people that we trusted and thought were experts in these subjects maybe weren't. And maybe when shit hits the fan, maybe you're kind of on your own, and maybe you need to, like, beef up your own, resistances to things. That's what a lot of people learn in COVID. And now I say, okay, so what's the lesson we're going to learn now? What is the new program that's being installed? What is the new information that this comet is bringing? And, I just see it more like when you compare it to the 2050 revelations, when you compare it to the 2027 prophecy, when you compare it to, all the stuff that I've seen with Robert Monroe and his depictions of the future, Dolores Cannon and her, New Earth, and the shift, and even Nostradamus and all the people that have sort of predicted the future, they say around this time, around 2025 to 2040, there's a great shift. There's a great awakening. There's this apocalyptic period, which again just means drop into the veil, where, the power structures, the control structures that have had everyone really, really, I don't know, brainwashed, for lack of a better word, really indoctrinated for decades, centuries, millennia, that those might be crumbling. And I see that as the thing that might be coming, that's what Atlas might be sparking this time, is that, kind of removing of the control structures and the indoctrination, and letting people start to, with an open mind and without so much control and authority, let people pursue, history and, religion and spirituality and these kinds of things without so much of the rigid control structures that we've had for so long. And I think that that's what Atlas is bringing, I hope anyways, so that we can, I don't know, people need to have more free will. I mean, we have free will, but our free will is definitely overridden by most government rules. So then we talked about, oh yeah, I did a reading on 3i Atlas. Yeah, so that's kind of what my take on that was. I won't go too far because, too long, because if y'all already watched that video, you don't need to hear a whole repeat, but that was what we discussed there. And then I went into the next episode on, and we'll get to questions here in a minute, on human design, because I've been, a big student and fascinated with human design for years. And I just felt like it's something that I built into SoulSync, because as I started making SoulSync, which is the framework of understanding that we're two beings in one, you're a higher self and a human self. And as I was going through, okay, what's the best way to really break down and explain what a human self is? Well, human design is the best system in the world at realizing not just what a human is in general, but like individual humans, like you're different than every other human. And human design can tell you and show you exactly who you are, what make and model of human you are, not just what overall make and model human you are, but what your very precise characteristics and features and everything
Yeah.
are, right? And then when you learn that,
Strengths and
yeah,
all that.
strengths, challenges, things to look out for. And it's a beautiful system that basically it's like 6 systems in one. It's the Chinese I Ching, which is a 5,000-year-old divination system that has 64 gates, 64 archetypes, 64 hexagrams, what they call them. And those hexagrams, they were able to map perfectly to the 64 codons in the human DNA. So it ties like the Chinese I Ching divination system to modern day genetics. It uses astrology and the neutrino stream. Ra, who created human design, actually told the world that neutrinos had mass and carried information 11 years before it was proven by science. Like scientists told him that he was crazy. And he was like, the voice told me. No, if you don't know what I'm talking about, the voice, I'll get in that in a minute. But anyways, so human design it's like a mixture of astrology, the I Ching, you have genetics, DNA, that kind of stuff. So modern, biology, and then you have physics and quantum physics, especially, that's built into it. And then you have the Kabbalah and the tree of life and the flow of energy through your body, and then using the chakra system. And this is actually a 9-center chakra system. So it's very in depth, but he created this like mechanical mathematical system that's incredibly precise that can tell you based on astrology. So it's kind of like getting a natal chart done through like a Vedic astrologer. Imagine that on steroids. And you can get so much information out about who you are, you as a person. And
But-
it's incredible.
So he just like, it was like a download, right?
It was an
Well,
8-day. He was basically,
the voice was telling him all the information. And
Yeah.
he was just writing it down.
yeah,
And they told him about the neutrinos, but he didn't believe that neutrinos delivered that information to him, right? Because he heard like an audible voice, like speaking
oh yeah,
to
yeah.
him.
It was basically a possession of sorts. Not like in a evil way. It was a channeling, yeah, but a full-on channeling. So basically what happened with him is his name is Robert Allen Krakauer. He was this like successful advertising executive in Canada, and then this is in 1987, up and moved to Ibiza, got this little house in the jungle, did this whole weird completely just up and left his whole life behind him. Finds himself one day, he's walking into his house, he's got his dog just kills over in front of him, doesn't die or anything, just it was like this energy blast. He walked in, said he felt like he was struck by lightning, and then all of a sudden he gets this voice comes over him, and there was this blue pulsating light that was right in front of him the whole time. Yeah. It's a blue pulsating light, and this voice comes over him, this like thundering voice, and just puts all of this information in him. And he didn't know any of this stuff before. And all of a sudden he has this like PhD level knowledge of the I Ching, which is a very complicated divination system. It's 64 hexagrams, and each one is like a different archetype. And it's like this breakdown of the complete human personality structure, split into 64 pieces. And then each hexagram has 6 lines. You have to know each line and each hexagram and how it all works together. So you got all that knowledge. Then you got all the knowledge of the Kabbalah, which was like this ancient mystical, like elite level, like teachings that they only taught to like the highest people. It was sort of like what we would call like Freemasonry now. Kind of how like the top people, the presidents and stuff, get the like super high knowledge, and everyone else gets like a watered down version. That's how the Kabbalah was, and it's where the Tree of Life comes from. And so the voice told him all about how we have 64 codons and these 6 like amino acid groups, I believe, of each codon in your DNA, and how they each map directly to the 64 gates of the I Ching, the 64 hexagrams, and how the energy flows around the body, and how basically what happens is when you're born, you have this like this, I don't know what you call it. Well, in human design we call it a body graph chart, but like in the real world, it's just like where all the placements of all the planets, where the moon and the earth are around the sun, where all the planets are, even the comets and asteroids. We take a snapshot of where everything is the day you're born, and also 88 degrees of the sun before you're born. So around 90 days or 89 days before you're born, and overlay those 2 maps on top of each other, and it creates your body graph chart. Anyways, so it's using astrology. And by doing that, what it tells human design is that the day you're born, or the second you're born, it has to be pretty precise. The neutrinos carry that information, and depending on where everything is, it's like a cosmic clock. You have these gates inside your body, and that's your codons inside your DNA. and the neutrinos hit them in different arrangements, and it's like flipping on um, like levers, right? So so when you're born, like say you have 64 levers, it's going to go through, and depending on your chart, depending on where everything is, it's going to turn some levers on, some levers off, right? And then that's kind of like your default settings. Okay. So that determines your characteristics and your, how you behave and how you act, that kind of stuff at like a physical body level. This isn't your consciousness. This is your physical avatar.
Right.
So it's kind of, and the really crazy thing about it is when you realize, or when you dive into like the types and you see the 5 different types of human design, like characters, and you have manifestors and you have generators and you have manifesting generaters and projectors and reflectors, and you see how each one of them works together.
We've got a question of what we each are.
What do you mean?
Stu asked.
Oh, what each of us are? Oh, I'm a projector, and
I'm a manifesting
you're a
generator.
manifesting generator. Yep. So, and you learn all these things. Like, for example, I'll use myself as an example. I'm a projector. So I'll just tell you real quick what the types are, because it's so fascinating. Because when you look around the world, it makes perfect sense. So generator or manifestors are the people who get things going, right? They're the ones that like, they have their own energy, and they're the ones that say, okay, there's a problem that needs to be fixed, or there's something that needs to be done. I'm going to start it. They start the project. Generators are the ones that don't usually come up with the idea to start projects, but they are like Energizer bunnies, and they can build. They build our whole world. So manifestors start projects, generators like take it and run with it, right? Manifesting generators can start a project and do the project, but then they'll see something else that needs to be done, and they're like, ooh, I need to start this project too. So a lot of times they'll have lots of projects going, and they can burn out. Yeah. So it's really cool for manifesting generators to either start and launch smaller projects that they can finish, or to work with generators to finish their projects that they start. So you will have to work together. And then projectors like me are people that aren't good at starting projects and aren't good at finishing projects, which is fucking me. But they're great at helping other people out. So they're consultants, guides, advisors, people like that. So generally, the way it would work is a manifestor would start a project. A generator would work with them to construct and build out and finish the project. And then somewhere along the line, they're going to need to call in a projector as a guide and consultant, either to take it to the next level or to help through a problem or something like that. So, and then you have reflectors, which are the most amazing types, but they make up like 0.5% of the world. It's crazy. But if you think about all this as like this avatar factory, right? You have to make all these humans, and you have to put them all in the right places, distribute them around the earth, so everything runs smoothly. You have reflectors, which there's not very many of them, and they are completely open. None of their centers are defined. None of their channels are defined. They're just fucking open, and they absorb everything. They're like sponges, and they absorb and they transmit that information back to wherever, the spirit world. That and they were able to basically say, okay, we need more manifestors over here. We need more of this over here. We have way too many of this over here. They're like the feedback system that feeds the information back up to whoever's doing all this. And I made a connection, and I was like, dude, so when you start reading like Michael Newton, so Dr. Michael Newton was this amazing psychologist who did hypnotic regression and took people to what's called the life between lives, where you sort of, review your past life and plan out your next life and do all sorts of fun shit. That's the spirit world.
I've been there.
You've been there.
The Life Between Lives.
Yep.
On my list, my to-do list that I signed up for. Yeah.
Totally. It's a thing. It's a thing.
Met my counselor. Yeah.
Totally. And so whenever if you read his books, they're like the most amazing books ever, but he has a book called Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls. And in Journey of Souls, both of them actually, but in Journey of Souls is the first one. They go to a place called the Hall of Destiny. The Hall of Destiny is like towards the end of your life between lives, right? You do your past life review, you talk to your guides, you go to the Council of Elders, and you do some R&R, and you train and all that kind of stuff. But then at a certain point, you go to the Hall of Destiny, and it's like this room where it's like a projection screen. It's like this holographic room, and you select your character for your next incarnation, right?
You get to see little snippets of what's going to happen in that life.
Yep, you do. And here's the really interesting thing. Based on those characters are selected for you and presented to you based on what your next incarnation is going to focus on. So this is where human design comes in. And in a way, it kind of proves everything I just said about these different types. Is that so? Say you're like, okay, in my next life, I need to work on this, and I need to do this, and I need to do this. Well, there's like this management system that's like, okay, so you're going to need to be in this type of avatar for that to happen, right?
Mhm.
Especially more experienced souls that have been doing this for a long time. They get a more of like a say in their next life. If you're a young soul, they're just like, there's a body, go have fun, good luck. But when you're a more experienced soul, they say that you have a more input on your next incarnations. And when you select your next incarnation, they'll say, okay, there's this body that you can be, it's this woman in Mexico City, or, there's this body, it's this man in Canada, there's this body, it's this, whatever. And so there's different bodies that are available, right? Kind of peppered around the world. And it made me think, I was like, I bet it's because based on what you're trying to accomplish in your next life, you need a particular
Yeah.
type, right?
Yeah.
And
You
so
need to be a manifester.
so they're basically like, here are your options that are available, and then you select the option. Like sometimes they talk about how you can be way more specific and say, okay, I want to be back with this soul group, and I want to be back in this place, and da da da. But generally speaking, if you're just going through the process, they give you a selection of bodies. And I think that's why. I think it's because certain bodies are made certain ways, and they're like, okay, this one. It's like if I went to a car dealership and I'm like, okay, I want to go off-roading. They're going to say, okay, well, you need this Jeep or this truck. They're not going to sell you a Corvette, right?
Yeah.
So it's like they match you up with the best vehicle.
Yeah.
I think that's what's happening. And human design does a great job of, I don't know, revealing all that and explaining it.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, I mean, like, I obviously didn't see the entire thing, but like mine was like I was trying to accomplish certain things, and like meeting you was one of the things that was on my list of 5 things to do. But I think that meeting you was because like once I got to that point, then I would be able to do the next 2 things,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that's what Michael Newton says too. You have these, and Robert Monroe said the same thing. You have these, Robert Monroe called them flag post. Like you
Yeah.
had these, or signpost, that in your life, you have these signposts that you have to hit. And the rest of
Yeah.
your life, you have free will. You can wiggle around, do whatever you want, but you have these kind of predetermined signposts. So you're like, okay, I can do whatever I want in this life, but around age 30, I need to do this. Around age 50, I need to do this. Around age 70, I need to do this. Like there's certain things that are supposed to guide you in a particular direction. That's why sometimes in your life, you'll feel a pull, like
Yeah,
a strong pull.
that's so
You'll be
funny.
like, man, we should just move to Florida. Right. And it's like, right. Like,
Yeah.
okay,
I
maybe
mean,
that part was predetermined.
undeniable.
Um,
But it's funny because like you mentioned that, but like when I was a kid, I was born in Wichita, Kansas, but like I always had this desire to live in Dallas, and I was like, I need to move to Dallas. I need to
Yeah.
move to Dallas. I have no idea. Like I hadn't even been to Dallas. And then my great aunt moved there. So then like I had like a way to go to Dallas,
mhm.
but it was like you were in Dallas. So it's almost like
Yeah.
I knew that's where I needed to get, because like the sooner that I got there and met you, then the sooner we could
Yeah.
get to the next,
To the next part.
part.
Yeah. And I totally believe that. And that's what I'm saying. Like when it comes to choosing your avatar, there's like, and Michael Newton even talks about this, like, and Robert Monroe does too. It's so wild that when you're fresh into the system, they kind of just fling you into like,
Yeah.
Whatever this is the next available, and you're like, yeah, I don't care. Just put me in. But whenever you're more like advanced or evolved and you've been around longer and you have a little more, clout, then you have more say. And that's why people that have had many, many incarnations, a lot of times will have like incarnation groups. They'll have like a little soul
Yeah.
cluster.
Yeah,
And they're like,
totally.
okay, here's like my 5 homies that we always come in. Sometimes I'm the dad, sometimes that's the kid, sometimes it's a boss, sometimes, you
Yeah.
change roles. Dolores Cannon talked about that all the time.
Yeah, I have a good friend who swears that she's got 2 daughters, and she swears that her younger daughter was her mother in her last life, like in their most recent life, that
Yeah.
her youngest was her mom.
Yeah,
And she's
probably.
like, like she comforts her and that kind of stuff. And it was like started whenever she was like 4 years old, you know?
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, you do past life regression, and you've seen that in several of your clients that, they'll have that aha moment, and they're like, oh my God. Like,
yeah,
that's why sometimes it causes animosity, because you'll be like, I've always hated my sister and I don't know why. And then you find out that it was like your husband who like killed you in a past life or something, and you're like, that's why I hate my sister. It has
Yeah.
nothing to do with anything she did in this
Yeah.
life, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's some major ones where it's like people will have like pent up aggression against the person. They don't know why. They're just always angry at that person, or they kind of
Yeah.
like pick fights with that person and that kind of stuff. And then they find that out. And I've like seen like relationships get better because they understand, oh, that was from a past life. It's like whenever you like have a dream about like your spouse cheating on you or something,
Yeah.
and you're like mad at them and they don't have any idea what is going
Yeah.
on, because that was all in your head and it was a dream.
Yeah.
But like you feel like that really happened.
Yeah.
It's like vivid
You have
to
the
you.
emotion of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy.
I think we've all experienced that,
Yeah.
right?
That's funny. Yeah. I mean, that's why past life regression is kind of cool, because sometimes it can shed some light on things that, because say you
For
realize
sure.
that, then you can be like, okay, now I can stop having this animosity towards the person because they didn't even do anything.
Well, and I think that like whenever you take the perspective of um coming into this life with the agreement to play like difficult roles and that kind of stuff, like, you kind of are like able to look at that person and that relationship in a different perspective. Like you're able to be like, okay, like I have a difficult relationship with my mom,
Yeah.
but you know, once we're out of this life and going to the next, I'm going to have so many extra brownie points,
Yeah.
or this is teaching me this lesson and I'm grateful that this person is helping me to learn this lesson.
I mean, it even makes you look at like strangers in a new light because, like Dr. Michael Newton talks about is people pick lives sometimes that they know are going to be hard and challenging, and that, you step into like an avatar that is going to be, um, treated a certain way or whatever. So say, so, for example, somebody is like very aggressive or psychotic or just a terrible person. Sometimes those people select those bodies and those lives. So, sometimes I look at people, and if someone's just really out of control, I'm like, I wonder if you're just really out of control, or if you purposely selected this avatar in this lifetime and you're learning some lesson, and maybe we're learning lessons vicariously in the way that we respond to you and stuff. So it makes you look at everything totally nuanced instead of just saying that person's an asshole. You're like, maybe there's more to it. It doesn't excuse anything, but it just makes you really look at everything as it's so much more complex.
I told you going to the store the other night that I really felt like some of those people were there as tests to see how I would react. We just smile and wave.
Yeah, absolutely. So I see the chat is popping off. I haven't had a chance to really look at it much, but I'll go real quick into the 2027 prophecy of human design because it's crazy fascinating. I've had a lot of people ask me to do a whole video, a whole podcast just on it, which I probably will do. Definitely have enough information. So Ra Uru in like 1988 had this prophecy of 2027. So that's 40 years, almost. So this was way in the future. And he said basically that there was going to be a mutation to the human species that was going to basically create a new lineage of like we're Homo sapien sapien is going to be something else. The Voice called it Raves. That was their name for it. And that it's going to be this new type of human that's born. And that at the beginning, we're going to consider it autistic, and we're going to mislabel it, and we're going to call it things because we don't know what it is, and we don't know how to label it. We don't know how to make sense of it. But there's going to be this big division, this big split, a bifurcation of the human species. And it's not like a bad thing or a good thing. It's just a thing. And he even goes back to 1781, the last time this happened. And that was whenever we discovered Uranus, and that's when we went from a 7-centered being to a 9-centered being, which is what current human design uses. And he even talks about how the current human design system won't work on humans born after 2027 because they're going to be different. They're going to have a different energy center setup. So we can still use the human design system on people born like all of us living people. It still applies, but like you won't be able to use it on if you're born after 2027. He said the human design system won't work for
So
them.
did he have an update for it
No.
after that, or is
He didn't plan on dying when he died. He died young.
Like, I wonder if
he had a
someone
lot more
else
work
will
to
get
do.
that information.
Yeah, I I'm sure. I mean, the voice gave it to him and told him when the voice delivered all the information to him that he was supposed to systemize this and spread it to the world. That's why immediately after he started traveling the world, he never traveled the world before that. He lived in Canada and then he moved to Ibiza. And then when he had all this happen to him, he immediately started after he spent time like putting it all down in this system format, like the voice instructed him. He did everything the voice said, and then he started traveling the world because that's what he was supposed to do. And he got
Hey.
it all out there. And then he died abruptly one day. I think he's like I think 55 or something, young. So he wasn't done with all of his stuff,
Yeah.
and he was still putting stuff out and working on stuff.
Huh.
Yeah.
Makes you think.
Yeah. So no, there's not a new system, but I'm sure it will be created. Um, somebody will get that inspiration or that message or that voice or whatever. But so the 2027 prophecy is that he basically said that this is so wild, and you can kind of see it happening, that these new raves that are born, they're completely different. So they're humans, but they're a new form of human, and that they share a consciousness. So it's 3 to 5 humans or raves, what they call them, share one consciousness. So that when they are alone, when they're by themselves, they're in a weakened, disconnected state, and that their job
Vulnerable.
is to find. They call them a penta, and they find their penta, and when they find their penta, then they completely activate and they turn on and they basically, I don't know, like reach their full potential, and that they need us regular humans, old humans, whatever you call us, at the beginning to help them find their pentas, because they're not going, a lot of them don't talk, they'll be nonverbal. A lot of them won't drive, a lot of them won't have jobs, that kind of stuff, and they need.
So like these kids today, like
Yeah,
so many are not interested in like driving or any of that
I
kind of
see
stuff,
it happening. I see it happening. And he said that they'll need us to build their infrastructure for their communities. They'll actually need us to reproduce because he said specifically they don't look at each other that way. So they won't, like a rave won't reproduce with another rave. So they'll still have to reproduce with us us old funky humans
Mhm.
um at the beginning. And then we'll have to like help them build their communities and their infrastructures, and we'll have to help them with some stuff. We'll have this like kind of a partnership,
Yeah.
kind of a thing with them where we're not going to like they're not going to live with us, and like they won't really identify with us, but they're not going to like not like us, and we're not going to not like them. It's just like a symbiotic relationship where like
Mhm.
we help them, they help us in certain ways, and whatever. But it's just it's a totally new world, because they're going to be being born and we're here, and then they're new and they're going to basically be like, we need y'all to do this, and then humans are going to be like, what, so there's going to be a lot of like weirdness and animosity at the beginning. And what do we see right now? We see like newer humans being born that don't really operate and jive with the older humans. Like there's this big split between the youth now that
Yeah.
they're just way different.
Yeah.
And
But then
most
there's like
a lot of them are very gifted, very
oh
psychically
yeah,
activated, which he said would be the
100%.
case.
Yeah.
Um,
Especially like with telepathy tapes and that kind of stuff.
the nonverbal autistics,
Yeah.
the way he described the raves was in that way, that they were going to be nonverbal. They weren't going to be able to take care of themselves, so they needed humans to take care of them. Um, but they were going to be like, it's a mutation in a chromosome. It's not like it's not like anything's wrong with them. It's not like everyone's making a big deal now, like don't take Tylenol because whatever. It's not like that. I'm not saying that you should take Tylenol, but I'm just saying that
Leave that one
I'm
alone.
just saying that, like, it's right now, what's happening is the world's trying to make sense
Yeah.
of all this, and that's what he said would happen is the world would be confused, and it would be like making things up to try to explain it because it doesn't have any explanation
Right.
for what's happening because we're going through this shift, right? And he said this in 1988, and now here we are 40 years later, and we're like kind of watching. And he said it was a 2027 prophecy because
That's
it's
crazy.
it's when we go into this new incarnation cross, which is called the cross of the sleeping phoenix, is when all this starts. And so it's all astrological based. It's not like he didn't just make up a number or anything. Like you know, he has exact reasons why he says all the things he says. So I'll go more in depth on the 2027 prophecy because it is very, very, very interesting. And I'll tie parallels to what we're seeing on Earth right now. And I'll go more deep into his. He wrote a book called The Book of Letters, and he goes hard on this stuff. And his name was Ra Uru Hu. That wasn't his real name. He changed it because he said that the person he was before no longer existed. He was now this new person. He was very funny. He was your typical guru. You know, he smoked, he drank, he cussed, he, you know, all that stuff. But he was, this system, human design, is crazy fascinating, crazy accurate. It's been around for 40 years. It's been used millions and millions of times. No one has ever been able to debunk it or to prove it wrong or anything. If anything, the more people try to prove it wrong, they end up falling in love with it. That's what happened to me. I thought I was trying to prove it wrong, and now I'm literally a human design coach. So, you know, if you ever need a reading, holler. So there's a place on my website to actually book a session, and it's more of like it's like an intuitive coaching session using human design as like the basis for it. So I use human design to really reveal your architecture it's like your user manual of who you are and your vehicle. But then we also go into, you know, there is just like an intuitive coaching part that once I know who you are at like under your hood, then I can talk to you about where you are in your life and where you're headed in your life and that kind of stuff. And I can use the human design to advise me, you know, to advise you. You know what I mean? So it really is this powerful system. But I don't just say, here's your reading. I mean, anyone can go and just get a human design reading. This is way beyond that. But anyways, that's that. So yeah, we're almost an hour in, and all I did was recap the videos. But they were cool. There's a lot of stuff in those videos.
Answered some extra questions.
Yeah. So, well, I got you guys for the last few minutes here. Let's do a little Q&A. Do we have anything that pops out at you, Sarah? And I don't know what happened with her camera. I was so excited. I was even telling Nick earlier. I was like, he's like, did you get the volume thing fixed? And I was like, yeah, I got the volume thing fixed. But I was like, every week I say, okay, this one's gonna be perfect, and then something messes up. So yeah, I don't know.
It's okay.
I don't know what
People
happened.
can hear my lovely voice. They can't see my lovely face.
No, y'all can just imagine. I mean, I can put you up here and you're frozen. There she is.
Yeah, still frozen.
Yeah.
There she is.
Not the best.
Frozen in all glory.
Okay. All right. What do we got? Where are all my peeps at? Okay. Earlier you had shown me a couple questions that came through on the YouTube. Where are those at? Let me answer those guys. You sent them over in a text. Here they are. Okay. Somebody asked, Bob, do you think the veil dropping will also be at a personal level, like meeting your higher self and realizing your mission level? Super interesting question. You know, that's the thing I've toyed around with the most between, like, you know, this whole catastrophic disclosure thing. Like, should we just rip the Band-Aid off and tell everybody the deal? And it's like, well, we come here, like I call this a simulator for consciousness development. Like our consciousness comes in here to like learn and to grow. And it's like putting on a VR headset and playing a game, you know? So the veil is lifted essentially when you die and you go back to spirit and you know, all that stuff. So, you know what I mean? Like, while we're in here, there's supposed to be a veil because we're in this different reality. So there's a reason why there's a veil. If we knew why we're here, then there wouldn't be a point in coming in here, if that makes any sense. You know, it's an immersive experience. So it's only immersive if you don't know that you're in a virtual reality. So I don't think there will ever be a complete dropping of the veil, because that would kind of defeat the entire purpose of being in here, of coming into, you know, the whole reincarnation experience. Having said that, when I say dropping of the veil and like the apocalyptic type thing, I see it more as, okay, so say you go to a school and you voluntarily go to the school because you want to learn, right? And you want to get a degree and whatever, and you want to graduate, and you know, you're at school to learn. And then somebody like comes in and they have bad intentions, and they change the curriculum and they start having the students do stuff that they shouldn't do. And then there's like managers and admins of the school that are like, whoa, you know, this new principal or whatever is up to no good. We got to get them out of here, kind of a deal. I kind of see that situation where Earth is this school that was made for good purposes, But there's a very good chance that somebody or something has sort of hijacked it in a little bit of a way, and that there is a little bit of a power struggle to get us back on course. And in that case, I think the whole dropping of the veil apocalyptic theme would be the exposing of whoever that is behind it. And I have my theories, but I don't want to say it here. But what is behind this whole kind of deception part? So like it's like if a school hired a bad principal and that principal just kind of sucked and put in some bad curriculum and they had to try to force the principal out, but the principal is like strong and was like, oh, I don't want to leave. That's kind of what I see happening. And I think that the whole dropping of the veil at a collective level is that exposing that. Now, at a personal level, which is what Bob asked, I think that as all this happens, it shakes up everything. And people, at a personal, individual level, start to ask more questions. They become less indoctrinated. They become less trusting of, governments, churches, teachers, parents, that kind of stuff, of any sort of control system or power system. As you start to see these things kind of crumble and be exposed, you start to see the corruption and stuff. Then you start to ask more questions. You say, okay, well, if that wasn't true, then what about this? And as you go through that sort of awakening, this awakening of maybe what I've been told, maybe what I believe my whole life isn't true. That's that ontological shock element, which can go one of two ways. It can drive you mad if you completely freak out because you're like, oh, everything's a lie, or it can become this beautiful awakening where you're like, you know what? I don't think I can trust any of these outside forces, so I'm just going to trust myself, and I'm going to like go inside, and I'm going to like, that's what I talked about in both of my videos this week, was that I think the outcome of all this, the outcome on the other side of the apocalypse, is self-empowerment, is people saying, you know what, it's not that you're on your own, like Mad Max style. It's that you're like, that you need to stop giving away your authority and stop giving away your power and stop saying, okay, my government's got my back, or, whatever, you know what I mean? You got to say, okay, I got my back. My family's got my back. My community's got my back. But really just, it's about personal empowerment. And I think that once all this stuff happens, I think, to answer your question, Bob, like the personal veil dropping is going to come through that process of self-discovery and self-enlightenment, and just sort of like waking up and being like, okay, like you'll just look at the world totally different. Now, obviously, with 3i Atlas coming through, all that stuff happening, new information coming in, the sun is reaching its solar maximum. There's a lot going on the sun. We have the veil thinning around the end of October anyways. There's a lot of things converging. So if anyone's going to have a personal awakening, the end of October is a good time to plan it. So, yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be waking up this year, and I think it's just going to keep snowballing. I think we have about a 15-year period where human awakening is going to be skyrocketing, and the power structures are going to be holding on for dear life, and there's going to be this like very, I don't know, tense sort of I don't know, standoff of sorts as people start taking their power back, and the power structures don't want that to happen. But I think that everything I've seen about moving forward, the people win, individuality wins, sovereignty. I mean, I'm not saying none of this is anarchist. Like the government does a lot of great things. I love living in America. I love being American. It's just about, I also love humans and I love the human spirit. And I think that we have way more potential than we're being allowed to realize. And that's not like victim mindset or making excuses. I'm saying at a collective level, we don't live in a world that really, really does everything it can to empower people to be the best that they can be. It's almost like you have to defy all odds to be the best. And I just think that we could do a lot better of a job nurturing and helping people to reach their potential, and to, instead of telling people that humans aren't that special and you don't have special abilities, and that, this is a prison planet and we're all slaves and tell them the opposite. No, this is a free will planet. You came here voluntarily, and humans are freaking amazing, and you have tons of abilities, physical and psychic. I mean, everybody is on the verge of becoming a superhero. We're one solar storm away. We're one, apocalypse away. So I see it more of like less of a government bad and more of a human good, and I just think that we need to like put the focus back on making the most of the human experience. So
I think that disclosure comes like at the person's level of readiness as well.
mhm.
Like when in 2020, I think that was the last time that Alexis came to visit. And I remember like we told her about the, UFO disclosure thing. Like that had been done for a while at that point,
Yeah,
and it blew her mind. She was like, "What
yeah,
are you talking about? Like, what are y'all talking about?" And we were like, "Oh, whoa." Like, that's not even a part of her world,
no,
you know what I mean? So, like, it's on, like, what level? So because, like, yeah, if it was just, like, Mars attacks, it would be
yeah,
mass chaos,
yeah. And I don't really
for sure.
see that ever being a thing because I think, like you said, it's an individual. You know, it's a participatory universe, and everyone's kind of rendering their own reality. And you know, they've even proven this with studies of like MUFON data where people like groups of people see a UFO and
Mhm.
they'll have like say 5 people in a field and they're
Yeah.
just having like a little, cookout or something. And there's like a clear as day UFO sighting. And
Mhm.
like two of the people will say, yes, I saw a saucer. It looked like this, da da.
Yeah.
And then one person will be like, I saw a light. Another person's like, I didn't see anything. I don't know
Yeah.
what these yahoos are talking about. Like it is a very individual experience.
Yeah.
So we're never going to have full on widespread disclosure because there's always going to be people that just simply won't believe it, won't acknowledge it, won't even like bring it into their reality, whether it's a belief system that keeps it at bay or whether they live in a cabin in the woods and just don't turn on the news. I don't
Yeah.
know. But like, you know, you have the choice to like, I don't know, in this world, like live whatever life you want. Like you can live a life, like you can believe whatever you want and stuff, and you can kind of create your own reality. So I think that, there's people right now. I mean, you got to think these people that are in some of these black projects in the government and stuff and that know all this stuff. There's people out there that know for damn sure there's aliens. They've seen them, they've interacted with them, maybe they've even been on a craft. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those people have a totally different view
Perspective
of
of it all.
reality
Yeah.
than somebody who has never left their town, lives in a small town, very
Yeah.
religious. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
two humans on Earth at the same time with completely different perspectives of
Yeah.
reality, our place in the universe, and
Yeah.
everything else. So, it's all individual. I mean, it's wild like that.
So, um, free will. Ethan had a question. What if you do not do those big posts? So the flag post
Oh,
that
the
we were
signpost things.
signpost,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess that would again go back to free will. Like
Yeah.
you sign up to do certain things on this life,
Mhm.
right? But if you don't do them, like it's not like you're gonna get punished whenever you go back. You're just gonna like not get the points or whatever. You know what
Well,
I
you'll
mean?
just try
Like,
again,
yeah,
you know?
you won't have completed that mission,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and I mean, you know, the way I understand it, your higher self guides you and nudges you and tries to do everything it can to get you to do the things that you because it knows, okay, so for example, before you come into this incarnation, you decided, okay, I want to do XYZ in this life.
Mhm,
You did that at like a higher self level, right? Like out of you haven't become this physical version of you
mhm,
yet. So your higher self puts just a piece of itself in here. It's like streams a little bit, not the entire thing, right? Like Michael Newton said very specifically that it's like 20% of your energy because too much would fry the human body. It's too much for the brain. So the brain's like an antenna. So
mhm.
you can't just crank it all the way up to 100. It'll melt down. I think that's what schizophrenia is. So you only a little bit of you comes into the body and the rest of you knows what you're here to do. It knows, right?
Mhm.
Because it
Yeah,
doesn't have the memory wipe. It doesn't come into the
right.
body and forget all that. So this part of us that's in the body is like, the fuck are we? You know, like, how do we get in here? Kind of a deal. But the rest of you knows, and it's like watching, and it's like, oh, it's so cute. Look, he's confused. He doesn't know what he came for. So it'll be like, okay, remember, buddy, like go over here. We
Mhm.
decided on this. You're gonna do this, and it'll
11:11.
yeah, and it'll guide you and it'll nudge you. And that's why sometimes like things happen and you're just like, oh, that was so synchronistic that this thing happened. Right on time. Led me here. And then this happened and blank, blank. That's your higher self guiding, nudging. But it will never force you to do anything because it knows you have free will. It knows you're here to learn, make mistakes, and that kind of stuff. It's just there to guide. and it knows that this isn't your only lifetime. So it knows that, okay, even if you went wildly off course, it'll just say, that's cool. Go have fun, man. We'll try again next time. Right.
Yep.
It's not a big deal. More than likely you've had lots of lifetimes, and it's not like critical that you get everything done in this one. Now there are more important lifetimes. I won't say more important. There's lifetimes that have been kind of structured with bigger meaning, like Robert Monroe, when he was talking to his higher self, when he was going on his big final mission, what he called the run along the interstate. He was like, what if I fail? What if this doesn't work? And they basically told him that there was his soul or his consciousness they had streamed into his body was split, and that he had a sister in Russia that was on a similar mission, and that if his didn't work out or whatever, that they would try it with her.
Leave it to a woman to get it done.
Isn't that crazy? And he told the story, and I need to find it. There's an old video of him telling the story, and I need to find it because it's the most wild thing ever. He talks about how he found her, and she actually worked for the Russian government. She was in the KGB, and or she wasn't in the KGB. She was in the Russian intelligence, but she wasn't KGB. And this is during the Cold War time, right? And he contacted her. He sent her a letter, right? When he found out who she was and that it was his soul sister.
Yeah.
And she ended up getting in a lot of trouble because he was an American who sent a letter to her talking about these things, and it was intercepted by the KGB, and she actually got in trouble, and he felt really bad because it was just she didn't know him. They weren't bloodline or anything, but that was part of his consciousness. So it was weird. But what are the odds? So he was in, he created the Monroe Institute, and the CIA and stuff started working with him on certain things. And his sister was in Russian intelligence. So they were put in very particular situations to do very specific things on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild. That's not random,
Yeah.
So you have free will once you're in the body, right? Like he had free will to send that letter to her. That was definitely not advised, and that definitely was not. The higher self's probably like, no, don't do it.
Yeah.
But he did because he has free will.
Yeah.
But it wasn't random that they were put in those bodies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's wild how that part works. So anyways, I don't even know what we're talking about.
Mission
free will.
Bigger than them, though.
That's what I was gonna say. So it was very clear that the thing that they were doing was a very important thing. You know what I mean? And they were the managers, the people above were like, this needs to be done. So we're going to make sure it gets done. We're actually going to put 2 people on Earth doing the same thing to make sure it gets done. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a very specific thing that they were here to do. But most lifetimes aren't that critical.
Right.
That was a bigger.
Yeah. Like usually it's more like your own personal thing.
Exactly. Personal development.
Yeah. So that was in response to Ethan asking, like,
oh, what if we miss a signpost?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I would put it this way, Ethan. Just because you miss it once, it'll come back around. If anyone out there has ever had these recurring challenges, I call them boss battles. It's like when you're in a video game and you go up against a boss and you lose. You go back to the beginning of the level, you play the level again, you have free will, you can go however you want, but eventually you're going to come back to that boss. You cannot go to the next level until you defeat the boss. So usually the signposts are like that. If you miss it one time, it'll come back around. It's not like, if you miss it, it's over. If it's that important and that pivotal, you'll get multiple chances at it. Don't worry.
And so he said he felt like he had big things he was pushed to do and misread.
Yeah, and that's part of life. I mean, everyone makes mistakes and turns left when you're supposed to turn right and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's all totally normal. You'll get many, many chances. Don't worry.
Absolutely.
Yep. And there was one more question from the old YouTube. Let me read that. I was talking about Chris Bledsoe's prophecy this coming Easter. Yeah, they're so.
Oh, sorry. I can't. Okay.
What are you doing over there? Okay. Somebody asked about Chris Bledsoe's prophecy this Easter. If y'all don't know about that, the lady told Chris that, was it on Easter of 2026, around Easter. She didn't say on Easter, but around Easter, the red star of Regulus, when it's in the gaze of the Sphinx, at sunrise, I believe, sunrise or sunset, a new knowledge will be bestowed upon humanity. I believe is how she worded it. Yeah, I mean, that's been analyzed every single way. I don't know what that means. I think it's interesting that it's talking about the Sphinx in Egypt and a new knowledge because I've done several videos on um, what is supposed to be underneath the Sphinx, which is the Library of Atlantis. And so when we talk about a new knowledge being bestowed upon humanity, and this is happening at the Sphinx in Egypt, I think that's very interesting because if it was the lady giving him new knowledge, right? Like if the lady's just like, "Hey, next Easter, I'm going to tell you some shit," right? Like, well, why would she have to do it in Egypt? She could just tell him the shit. But the fact it's supposed to be at the Sphinx makes me think that somebody is going to discover what's underneath the Sphinx around Easter of next year. So that's my hypothesis that it's not necessarily the lady. People think the lady is going to just appear like at the pyramids and be like,
Well, that would be pretty cool.
knowledge, you know.
Knowledge.
But like, why would she
Sprinkle.
wait until like just
Yeah.
do it? You know what I mean? It's such a precise thing, location, time, and everything. So I really think that there's going to be some discovery that happens with the Sphinx. I mean, they're discovering stuff right now. They're going hard on
Yeah.
the pyramids. I mean, there's so many people that are like using these new technologies to find stuff under the pyramids. It's only a matter of time before they find out what's under the Sphinx. And according to Edgar Casey, what's under the right paw of the Sphinx is the staircase that goes down to the Library of Atlantis. And the Atlanteans are who built the Sphinx,
Yeah.
according to him, who built the Sphinx and the pyramids and everything. And they put their library that has the true story of our genesis and our origins and our progenitors and all that stuff. And that's in that library. So
We shall see.
that's what I think is going to happen. I have no idea.
Not too
but
far away.
yeah, right. A few months, 6 months. Wow. Yeah, 6 months.
It's right after my birthday.
That's crazy. So, I mean, imagine how that would affect the world. You know, we talk about all these prophecies and about apocalypse and the changes coming up and all this kind of stuff. Imagine if we discover a library that literally the whole point of the Library of Atlantis was it talked about their cataclysm, how their civilization ended, how they survived, how they passed the knowledge and the religions down through the mystery schools, and like the origins of human beings on Earth and that kind of stuff. Like imagine that, because obviously none of that's going to jive with what people are taught in school and
Right.
churches and stuff. You know, this is going to be, and we're taught the Atlanteans didn't even exist, right?
Yeah.
So now if we find out they did
Yeah.
exist, there was a cataclysm, there is a breakaway civilization. All those mystery schools were literally funneling that information down to keep it survived, to survive that information. That's what the Knights Templar are, and that's what all those they're passing that information down, the Rosicrucians and everything.
Right.
That's all Atlantean information. And like, you know, Thoth and all those deities are real, you know, that would change everything. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's what the lady's talking about. Who was that? Who said this? Oh, I don't see a name. But anyways, yeah, good question. I mean, if you believe Chris, which there's no reason not to, we've hung out with Chris multiple times. He's an amazing person, most honest person you'll ever meet. So no reason not to believe him. You know, I don't know the lady, so I can't vouch for her information, but you know, yeah, I think it plays right in with the timeline too. You know, we're talking about all these big changes coming up like in the very near future.
Yeah.
And he's told that. So yeah, we'll see. A lot of exciting things happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Three Eye Atlas would be like 5 months before that ish.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah. So
Big
we'll see.
stuff coming.
I'm very excited to see what happens directly after 3 Eye Atlas. So we're gonna have the perihelion on October 30th, I believe, and then it sort of slingshots out. I think I saw somewhere that it's gonna come back through one last time before it finally exits. But after the perihelion, after it sheds a lot of its material, pretty quickly, you know, in the last two, it was 1 month to 6 weeks after that we started having like major changes on Earth.
Yeah.
So be looking for around Christmas time. The last two were December. It was December when the New York Times article came out, and it was December. It was December when COVID started, but we didn't really catch wind until January, February. That's when they really started panicking. But it was December when it started spreading. So
remember the cruise ship?
Yeah, and last December is when we had all the drones, which they're back now. So my next video is actually going to be on the drones
In Copenhagen.
Yeah, Yeah, they're kind of freaking out over in the Nordic countries right now.
Mhm.
And I have a theory on the drones. So Tuesday, we're going to be talking about drones. It's not going to go the way you think. Well, if you follow me on X, it'll probably go the way that you think. I've been talking about the drones like crazy. It's crazy interesting. These things are not drones. Okay, so we'll just get that out of the way. They're not drones. I have my theory of what they are, and I'm going to do a deep dive on Tuesday into the quote unquote drones because they are back. All the stuff that was kind of terrorizing New Jersey and New York
yeah.
last December, and then that led to we had all that weird fog that was happening last January right after the
Oh,
drones,
yeah, I forgot about
especially
that.
out in California, and then we had the fog and the fires and everything happened right after that. And I did some deep dives on that last year about the link there, and it was wild. I mean, I had some clients out in California telling me some really creepy stuff having to do with the fog and the fires and the drones. So now the drones are over. They're not in America this time, but almost a year later they're back and causing some chaos. So we're going to dive into what those guys are, and so I'd love to hear all your theories. And I don't know what Thursdays is going to be. I try to match my videos up each week to kind of have like a theme, you know.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Thursdays will be a mystery.
Until Tuesday.
Yeah. So I'm not one of these podcasters that like it's like, okay, I did a podcast that'll be out in 6 months. Mine, I usually record them the day before I post them. So it's fresh and it's current, the stuff I talk about is stuff that's like top of mind, like right then, so whatever I talk about on Thursday is probably going to be something that happened on Wednesday. So anyways, leave me a comment if you have any suggestions for me. Yeah, I guess what do you got? Got anything to say, Sarah?
No, we'll have to do some on Bigfoot soon.
Yes. How about I interview Sarah? Let's do that. I'm going to interview Sarah Crowder. She's going to be one of my next guests, and we're going to talk all about Bigfoot because we've had some Bigfoot sightings here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, sightings,
Well,
communications,
encounters. I don't know what you'd call it. Sarah talks to Bigfoot. Bigfoot's actually like her homie, protects her.
Yep.
And guards the portal that we're opening right now.
Yep.
So a lot of weird things been happening.
Not weird. Nothing's weird anymore.
He visited us on our walk to the beach the other day, and I almost fainted. It's freaking weird.
Yeah, Jordan hasn't got used to his energy yet.
So anyways, yeah, welcome to our life. So we'll definitely do a Bigfoot video. Yeah, a lot to talk about there. And I'm sure we just lost half the audience, but don't worry. It'll make sense once you see the video. Okay.
If you've ever wanted to know about Bigfoot, we'll give you what we know of Bigfoot.
Yep. Yeah, let me look at some of these comments real quick, make sure I'm not missing anything. And I did put out a thing today on X because we are building out a space and everything. So thank you to everybody who, showed your support and everything. And we're going to be sharing more, updates as we go along. Some of y'all have been extra super duper amazing. So thanks everyone for your support. We look forward to hosting y'all at our events here coming up pretty soon. We're looking at probably November 1st for more or less official opening.
Yeah.
Probably some soft stuff coming up in October.
Yeah. We have our first private event on October 1st. So exciting.
Yeah. We're going to do a big grand opening party. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So, and I know people, like most people don't live here. But, just kind of keep it on your radar next time you're in Florida, next time you're in the Panhandle, come by and see us. And
if you need to go to the most amazing and beautiful place.
Yes.
Right in your backyard.
Yes. It's not terrible. So, yeah. And we're going to be doing some big things like multi-day things. So it'd be a great, like kind of mini vacation, You get to come hang out at the beach. We're going to do things where we literally do like these awesome workshops at the space. And then we'll just walk down to the beach and do like beach bonfires, paddle boarding, all that kind of stuff. Go for hikes in the woods. You know how you always watch me walk through the woods and talk? We're going to do like group walks and talks. It's crazy.
Paddleboarding.
I did that.
Yeah.
I did a holographic reading with that guy, Tom. Tom Waite. What's
Mhm.
his name? Just blank. Sorry, Tom, Tim. Love you, man. He did a holographic reading on me. You've probably seen him. He was on Danny Jones, and he's been all over the place. He's awesome. And in his holographic reading on me, Tom Matt, that's it.
Upside.
Upside, yes. He did this holographic reading on me and showed me what he saw was me walking through the woods with like how birds fly in a V with
Yeah.
people on both sides going back. And he was like describing it. And I was like, well, that's cool. But I mean, it's just me walking. I don't know what you're seeing, you know, and now we're talking. So that just hit me. That's weird. Anyways, so maybe that happens one day and I'm just like total deja vu, you know?
Maybe so.
Yeah.
That'd be super cool.
Yeah. Special shout out to my man Travis out there. Thank you for being super duper awesome, Trav. And I think I have
You have a reading with him.
I have a reading with you coming
Yeah.
up. So super looking forward to that. That's gonna be a whole lot of fun. So but yeah, I don't want to keep you guys any longer. I know it's Saturday night. Thank you all for giving me an hour and a half of your time. Hopefully I answered all the questions.
I got most of them.
We'll get Sarah's. We got the mic fixed this week. We're baby steps, everyone. So this
Next
week
week
was Mike. Next week I even bought her a new camera. I went to the store and got this new
it
camera.
worked last week.
Yeah, last week the camera worked and the mic didn't. I don't know. We're doing everything right.
We're getting there.
I even got new software. Figured it out. Yeah.
Well, the third week is the charm.
Yeah, it's.
Well, I mean, you know,
I don't know.
third week.
We're trying, guys. We're trying.
It's all
But
good.
yeah. Anyways, I have blisters all over my fingers, and I'm gonna go back out. So tomorrow we're laying pavers at the space.
Yep.
Doing
the
more
lights
manual
up
labor.
today.
So I'm gonna have to get some new gloves. Today's didn't have fingers, and now my fingertips. They were gloves, but they didn't have fingertips. So
We'll get you some fingertipped
I don't know.
gloves.
See, now we've hit that part of the show where I'm just whining. I think that means it's late. So I'll let you guys go. But anyways,
Thanks everyone.
thanks everyone. Love you all. Have a beautiful
See you
night.
next Saturday.
Bye.